Hello YouTubers, Alaska Prepper here. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope that you're paying attention to everything that is being put out, not just by my channel here, not just by the Alaska Prepper community, right, but by everyone else. So many people think that because bad things happen in other parts of the world where they don't live, that it's not really going to affect them. Well, at this point here, at least in the United States, if everyone in the United States has not realized that their lives are being affected because their standard of living is dwindling day by day, week by week, year by year, depending on your socioeconomic status, then I'll tell you what, you're going to come to a rude awakening because everything is coming to a head. Now, I want to talk about what's going on with the grain shipments that have ceased coming out of the big U. You know, the big U and the big R. And I'm sorry I have to talk like that, but we are on the internet, or I am on the internet, and that's what you have to do in order not to get slapped in the hand. Towards the end of this video, I'm going to read you an email from one of our community members who's a military wife and whose husband is currently active duty in the military. And I'm going to show you how it is that these things that are happening way far from us, far from where we live, is affecting us now. So imagine how much it's going to affect us here when it actually starts happening here. When we finally realize and are told the truth by our 3-letter agencies and some 4-letter agencies like the USDA, let's say, that we really didn't have the same harvest that they were telling us that we had all along. The thing is, we won't find out till next year. Well, right now, most of the rest of the world, or at least I would say not most, about 1/5 of the rest of the world is going to feel this in a really big way here come the next several months. Because as you can see here, the big R has suspended participation with the big U in the grain deal after ships that belong to the big R were attacked in the Black Sea. All right, so that's what it says here. They were attacked in the Black Sea. I'm not really going to go over this article, but what I'm trying to tell you is that these are the things that we need to stay abreast of. We need to understand how these things are going to affect us. Let me go ahead and put it in a compressed way real quick. Hopefully I won't lose any of you. So we live in an economy that is like a world market, right? We have a very small world now. It's not a big world anymore. And what I mean is that with technology, with ships, with transport, all of these things, I mean, you can send a FedEx from your home, let's say from California to New York, and you can pay for it to be next day and it'll get there the next day. That's what I mean about we have a small world, meaning that if something happens in a different part of the world, it's going to affect everyone in the world in one way or another. It will affect some people more than others, depending on how well insulated that other nation may be, meaning that because of these grains that are now being halted from being taken out of the big U and dispersed or exported to other countries that rely on that grain. Because of that, those other countries that were relying on those grains, they're going to have to go to the market, to the world market, and therefore put a bid in for the grain that is available in the world market. Well, what does that do to me? What does that mean to me, AP? I live in the United States of America. Well, what that means to you is that if this problem is not fixed, that means that bread, that means that everything that is made with those grains that were being exported from the big U to other countries, that means that those things are going to go up in price. Now, let's just take corn, for example. Corn is used in almost everything. I understand GMO corn mainly. That is the devil. Corn is the devil. It's bad for you because of this, bad for you because of that. However, it's used in almost everything that is produced as far as sustenance. Same thing with wheat. All right, same thing with soybeans. Even though soybeans aren't good for you for whatever reason, right? I think it has something to do with hormones. I agree with that stuff, by the way. I've done some research on that. And I believe that it's not good for you, especially soybeans. They really soak up a lot of the fertilizers and bad things that are in the ground. They actually soak it up. But that's not what this is about. Those things that you normally consume are going to go up in price a lot. Now, it's being reported that I believe it's in the UK, don't quote me on this, but I believe that it's in the UK, that it was already reported that going into next year, food prices are going to go up an additional 65% of what they've already gone up. Ladies and gentlemen, that is exponential. Exponential in definition means by more than one, like two, like to the second, third, fourth power, right? Well, how is it that 65% is exponential? Well, it's on top of what it's already gone up. So if food started out, something started out costing $1 2 years ago, and now it costs $3 because it went up 100% the second year, and then it went up 50% the next year. And for example, let's say it's up to $3 now. Now it's going to be 65% on that $3, not on the original dollar that it started. So that is, in a way, hyperinflation, if you want to think about it that way, because even though the percentage is lower, it's still more than 100% than what it used to be when this crisis first started, which was around late 2020, 2021, early 2021, something like that. All right, so that's how it's going to affect you, and that's why you need to stay abreast of what's going on, ladies and gentlemen. Food here in the United States, in my opinion, all right, in my opinion, now not everything, because someone is always going to find one thing. Well, these biscuits didn't go up by 100%. Food in the United States, ladies and gentlemen, in my opinion, is going to double next year. By the end of 2023, food is going to double, not because of just one thing, but because of many things, because of many storms coming together, all right, coming together and climaxing at the same time. We've got Whiskey Alpha Romeo going on, right? We've got prices of energy going up everywhere in the world, not just one country. Now we're going to have a fertilizer problem. Why? Because of Europe. Europe cannot make fertilizer. Why? Because they cannot afford to run the factories. They cannot afford the fuel, the energy to make that fertilizer. So now what are they going to do? They're going to have to import it. Import it from where? More than likely, they'll import it from the United States. They'll import it from Canada, you know, those countries that produce it. And the U.S. isn't even a country that produces a lot of fertilizer. So what's that going to do to the cost? It's going to make the cost go up even more than what it has already gone up. What's that going to do to the cost of your food? What's the price of energy, gasoline, diesel fuel? What's all of that stuff going to do to the cost of the food that you consume, that you go and buy at the supermarket? It's going to make everything go up. Doing what? Bringing down your standard of living. And ladies and gentlemen, the thing is that we cannot control any of this. One day after they stopped the shipping of grain from that area in the world, from the big U, the U.S. is already asking, or the UN is already asking the big R, hey, reconsider this and undo what you just did, because a lot of people are going to starve going into 2023. Right now, they've got it pegged at almost 900 million people around the world that depend on that grain coming from that country. And that's just to keep them hungry. Those 900 million people, that's just to keep them hungry. That's not to keep them well fed. Now imagine if this grain is not available. How much money can they throw at this problem now to make sure that those people get fed? Because you can print money out of thin air. It's just a few keystrokes, right? But can you do the same thing with food? No. So now that they're not able to export this grain, and now that they're being asked to, hey, please ease up on this, even though they were the ones that were attacked in that region. I'm not taking any sides, all right? But from what I understand, they had some kind of a ceasefire. They said, hey, yeah, we're going to go ahead and open up this region as long as it stays safe and peaceful in this area so that the grains can come out. And that ceasefire, it was done away with by the other side, right? I'm not sure if that's exactly what happened. I wasn't there. It's just what I've heard. It's just what I've read. But does that really matter? Does it really matter to the people that's not going to get those grains? And why should it matter to you? You better be preparing if you have the means to prepare now, because those grains are going to cost a lot more going into next year. And then when people finally find out that our harvest is not what we were told it was, grains are going to cost even more. And grains, ladies and gentlemen, that is the root, in my opinion, in part, is the root of civilization. Because grains you can store. Grains will last a long time. You can take grains into the next year and always be 1 year ahead. What's this going to do to our carryover? Are you thinking about going into 2024? I'm already thinking about going into 2024. What's going to happen with our carryover if we have another bad harvest, if we have another bad planting season, if this here conflict is still going on, which I believe it will be going on for several years to come. All right, ladies and gentlemen, what's going to happen in 2024? I believe that our carryover is going to be less and less and less going forward until we finally see scarcity, actual scarcity on the shelves, and the prices are going to be prices that most people cannot afford. So are you preparing? Let me go ahead and read you this email that I got from one of our community members, and thank goodness that she and her family are preppers. Now, I received this email a while back, so I want to thank you very much to the person that sent me this. I really appreciate it. I didn't forget about, putting it out here, but it sounds like this person knows exactly what's coming down the line. It's just going to be a lot worse than what they experience. And let me tell you what, also, an E7 in the military, they make a decent salary. They make a pretty decent salary. And for a wife of an E7 to be writing this email, well, just listen. She says, my husband is an E7 in the Navy, currently deployed. We have 6 kids. Beginning 2022, we had about $300 left after all of our bills were paid. So that's not terrible. That's about average for a family that's living paycheck to paycheck. Remember, even our military people are kind of like living paycheck to paycheck. Now, when you only have $300 at the end of the month to pay all your stuff, what happens if you lose that job? For this person, it's not likely because her husband's in the military, and that's, unless he does something really bad to get kicked out, that's a pretty stable income, meaning that you can count on it to be there every 2 weeks, or on the 1st and the 15th. Now we have cut nearly all unnecessary expenses. We didn't have many before, but Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus, Spotify were all canceled. So they did what they should be doing, canceling all discretionary spending that they don't need, right? So that's good. Our grocery budget was $1,000, I'm assuming per month. Yes, per month prior, and now it's cut down to $400. So their grocery budget has been cut down to $400 a month by 60% at a time when groceries are going up in price. So it doesn't mean by them saying that they cut their grocery budget down by 60%, it doesn't mean that they're getting 60% less food. They're getting a lot more than 60% less food, probably 70 or 80% less food. Why? Because as prices are going up for foods, they're cutting their budget. So they're getting even less food than what it looks like if you just do the numbers. And that's for all 8 of them. So it's a family of 6 children, a husband and wife. She says, thankfully, I listen to you and I've been putting aside extra when things are on sale. Outstanding. I really like to hear that. Payday preps. And have a little bit of dry powder on the side for those sales that you weren't expecting. Now I can only afford to buy foods that are on sale and use what we've stocked. So right now they're living on their preps and living on sale food items. After all the bills are paid, we are negative a couple of $100 per month, which goes on a credit card. I was really hoping that military pay would increase to match Social Security and retirement pay, which is at 8%, but which is going to be, I think it's like 8 point something percent that is going to be this year. So yeah, Social Security beneficiaries are going to get a decent pay bump in their Social Security. However, that's still not keeping up with inflation. But unfortunately, that doesn't look to be the case. A 4% increase is effectively a pay cut. So the military looks like they're only going to get a 4% increase, which is, in reality, a pay cut because inflation is much higher than 4%. That is a pay cut 2 years in a row. I've been heavily debating if I go to the food bank so I don't have to spend any money on groceries and can stop using debt to cover basic bills. It would break my husband to know that I do that because he's worked so hard to provide for us and has given his life to do so. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the part where I tell you that inflation steals your time and your labor. Her husband is still working just as much. He's working just as much, the same job that he's had for I don't know how many years he's been in, but probably for several years because he's an E7. He's working just as much, but his pay is not keeping up with inflation, which means that if he were working an hourly rate, it would mean that he would have to work more hours for the same amount. Because here, as you can see, he's working a salary. This is like in the military, it's like a salary because you get the same amount depending on how much time you have in service, how much time you have in grade, and all of that stuff. Sometimes you get a little bit more depending on your exact job. Like if you jump out of an airplane, if you're a paratrooper, I think it's $150 more a month for jumping out of a plane. If you're a diver, I think it's $150 more a month if you're a diver and you perform your duties as a diver and whatever billet you're filling. So that's what I talk about when I talk about how inflation steals your wealth, i.e. your time and your labor. Because if you keep working the same amount of hours that you were working before, you're not going to be able to keep up with inflation. And what's that doing? It's making you work more hours to get the same amount of things. In this case, it's the reverse. He can't work more hours, so now they have to get less things. So they can't even get the same amount of things that they were getting before, so they have to get less things, and they're still in the hole at the end of the month. That is what inflation does, ladies and gentlemen. And she continues to say, we are currently on WIC for my youngest who will age out in 2 months. We make too much to qualify for food stamps. In 2017, the military moved us to Washington, and the cost of living is outrageous. And it is. The cost of living in Washington is pretty high. And BAH hasn't kept up. BAH is basic allowance for housing, and she's saying that it hasn't kept up with the rents in that area. Hasn't kept up with rent and housing. Gas prices is what did it for our budget. We were spending $400 a month last year on gasoline. Guess what it's now, ladies and gentlemen? Twice that much. Now it's $800 since gas has doubled. I have a couple of kids that are PT and OT and speech, so we do drive more than normal for many medical appointments each week. I could go on and on and on. And please inform the public. Something most civilians don't understand is that when you move every 3 years, you don't get the benefit of building up equity, which lowers cost of living or choosing where you live. You don't get help with family and have to hire sitters for medical appointments. It costs more to constantly move, not having to support the system, etc. Well, I think this is a story that it doesn't really matter that you're in the military because it's a story that everyone is seeing. I can understand those hardships for being in the military and moving and moving and moving, and you really don't ever get, while you're in the military, unless you're very business savvy and you want to be a landlord, you don't ever really want to buy a house because you're afraid that you're going to have to PCS, soon after you buy the house or something like that. And then what are you going to do? If you can't sell it and you end up renting it, it's just a big hassle. Trust me, I've been there, done that. But I think it's pretty much the same story for anyone. For anyone that works a 9-to-5 job, that works an hourly job, that lives here in the United States, right? Not even talking about anyone else, outside the United States, they can see that the hours that they are working compared to the dollars that they are earning, it's not keeping up with the things that they normally used to get for the same number of hours worked. And what is that? That's inflation stealing your life. So ladies and gentlemen, prepare, because this is not going to get any better until it gets a whole lot worse. Having said that, thank you very much. Thank you to every one of you that joined in on our live stream today. Right? We had a great time like we always do. Other than that, I hope you have a great rest of your Sunday. Remember to be good to each other. When good people do good things happen. Remember to reach one, teach one, and repeat. If we all did this, the world would be a better place, and you know that it will be a better place. Many blessings to all of you and your families. I'm Alaska Prepper. I'm out.
Nutrient Survival isn't just survival food. It's special ops grade. Built to the nutritional standards of the U.S. Special Ops and packed with 40 essential nutrients. Formulated to sustain energy, sharpen focus, and keep you and your family thriving during any emergency. Real food, real ingredients. Oh, and a 25-year shelf life.